how to heal unworthiness through the mirror principle. So it's actually become a very common thing for many of us to experience unworthiness, experience a sense that we're not good enough, or to experience like a sinking and a lack of confidence that really comes down to like a programming or conditioning around not fully loving ourselves. And I know many of us have experienced this and grown up with this. It seems very common in the Western world as well. That even though we have access to so much, we are learning access to our inner dimension and resources. It just reminds me of this story that I heard of someone was speaking to the Dalai Lama, and they asked him, there was a translator, right? And there's a psychologist speaking to him. And he was trying to describe to him how in the West that a lot of people were experiencing a lack of self-worth. And it took them a long time because the translator couldn't find a word for that in their language that made any sense to the Dalai Lama. And then eventually when they found a word, he like grew visibly saddened and shared how even though they had gone through an invasion or not having nearly as much materially, they were living so simply and so connectedly to themselves that it was unheard of for them to have issues of self-worth. And I thought that was interesting because in a place too where there's so much opportunity that so many people deal with an issue of self-worth. And I think in the world at large too, with the increase in the amount of things that can take up the bandwidth of our awareness, that it's common for people to experience the gap or the separation from their true self when we come in here, when we're born here, right? Because our parents have certain beliefs and they were handed down and all of this and the culture and everything. We're born into a certain level of contrasting diversity of experiences. And we can be taught to not, or entrain ourselves into beliefs that don't fully serve us. But this is beautiful and a blessing because it gives us that contrast to be able to come to an awakening and be able to realize that we are the love that we've always been looking for. And that finding that worthiness, right? So now I'm going to relate this to the mirror principle. So reality is like a mirror. When you look into a mirror, right, and you see an image of yourself, you're looking at the reflection. You can't reach out and change the mirror to change your reflection. You've got to change yourself, and the reflection will reflect that back to you. So think of that reflection as your world. And so as we go through experiences, say you've ever not felt appreciated by someone, how did that make you feel? Did you feel it in your gut? Did you feel it in your solar plexus? Wherever we feel those experiences, have you ever noticed that long after those experiences have happened, that you have an inner voice that is continuing to say things that are similar to those things to yourself? one way to inquiry this is to simply look into the mirror and feel whatever that is around your worth that's arising, and pay attention to any thoughts or any inner dialogue that you're having. Just bringing awareness to that. Awareness is the medium. Awareness is the conduit. It is through awareness that transformation happens. All techniques, all modalities are secondary. It is through awareness, right? Awareness is the key to our freedom. So, nothing too serious going on here, but it's like, so as I started, and I didn't know about I did this back before I knew about any of this stuff intellectually. I remember I was in middle school and I went and I was experiencing this season in my life where I was no longer, it was like I was fed up with, because I was being bullied, right? And I was like, I was fed up with it. And I remember one day I just looked at the mirror and I just looked at myself and I was like, you know what? You're awesome. I love you. And I just started like giving these positive affirmations to my reflection in the mirror. And I noticed how my posture like started to change. My shoulders started to come back. I felt more confident. And one thing that I noticed was I felt this opening in my solar plexus. I felt this clearing in my solar plexus. And then when I went to school, like I would have these really positive, beautiful interactions, right? And I remember one day there was this like, it was the last person that would make fun of me that was left was this big football player, right? And I'm like relatively physically a like small kid. And it just remember one day I just went and I squared up with him and he's like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to fight you. So, but I'm not going to take this. Do what you're going to do. And he just was like, walked away and then never bothered me again. And but I started like, I'm like, that's so interesting. Because it was more of like, it was like an energy thing. And then there was something about this that was an early on experience I had of that. But I've noticed this through, it's like you can see it in your posture, like you can see it in how you show up, you can see it in how you feel, you can see it in how you speak, right? And so that mirror principle too is that other people will treat you how you train them to treat you, right? And the past only exists in how we reactivate it now. Because if you're remembering something, the vibration is now. So even though it happened back then, it's still active. So becoming aware of the vibration itself, you can sheathe off the stories of the past and reclaim your power through becoming aware of your vibration. So using that, whatever that memory was, of where you didn't feel that way about, you didn't feel confident, didn't feel respected or loved or appreciated by other people, bring awareness to that vibration. And it's as simple as giving that love that you wanted from those other people to yourself right now. Giving that respect to yourself, even looking in the mirror and saying, I love you, I respect you, and being aware of any of those negative self-talk and dialogue, and just meeting that without reacting to it. Don't judge the judgment. Because anything you push against, whatever you resist, persists. But if you receive those reflections of your own inner dialogue, and you simply receive them and don't resist them and just love them, you overcome them. Because they don't have any power over you. When you fully love them, when you fully love yourself, fully loving yourself is how you heal the issue of self-worth. And when you heal the issue of self-worth and you find that self-love and you find that self-respect, and you take all those experiences where you felt small and you love that part of yourself and you merge with the bigness of who you are, and you blend with your totality, it is surely to be reflected in your experience. Because if you're having any of those relationship dynamics in your life now, what's going to happen is they're going to either have to rise to the vibration that you're now vibrating at, or they're going to be at a distance or leave your life entirely, or there's going to be some kind of change in the relationship. And also, when you have such a level of courage, when you have such a level of love, inwardly sourced love, you love yourself so fiercely that you love everyone around you. But you don't sacrifice yourself, because you realize that kind of sacrifice is an empty and futile battle. It's playing the nice guy. But also, paradoxically, it's turning the other cheek. Because you realize that in order for others to have a fight with you, you have to be fightable. As soon as you become at peace with yourself, and you don't rail against that, it'll leave your life. And as you also basically stop giving a fuck about what everybody else thinks about you, because you love yourself and you step into that, right? Then you stop putting up with it. You just stop. You stop putting up with it. You create energetic boundaries. And you give yourself permission to create those boundaries in your space. And yes, things will come up. Things come up. Because whatever is active within us will get reflected, will get attracted. And yet, when you use those as indicators and you work on the inner level to be, how can I come to a greater level of love? How can I come to a greater level of self-respect? How can I come to inner peace within myself? And you start to use that and treat it as a mirror. You take your power back. Because the best way to not give your power away, well, is to not give it away. I guess what I meant to say is the best way to take your power back is to not give it away. And I know that sounds like, if you're in the middle of it, I know that can sound like, but I'm in the middle of it. And I'm like, I get that, but you got to get ahead of it. It's like Abraham Hicks says, if you got a car rolling down the road, rolling downhill, if you stop it a foot forward, you could stop that car. 30, 100 feet down, you can't get in front of that car and stop it. Things have momentum. So whatever is active within us will act itself out. But the more that we become aware of this, things can change very rapidly in our experience. I've experienced it myself too. And I've experienced, when I first started talking in terms of energy, I had one old time friend who it was like a backlash. And he wanted to argue with me, or he wanted to dismiss what I was saying. And then I got to this point of just totally owning my self-knowledge, my knowing within myself, and not caring what he or anybody thought. Disappeared. And that's where I was saying is that it's it'll either have to rise to that vibration, or it will have to disappear, or it'll have to change. Because it's literally a mirror. And also when you do this mirror work, you're being able to see your own perceptual filters of yourself, because your ego, right? I know that there's a lot of different definitions of what the ego is, but how I'm using it right now, I'm talking about your perception of yourself, your self-identity, let's just put it that way, is made of beliefs about who you are, right? And beliefs are just thoughts that we keep thinking. So a great way to be able to do this work is to become the witness. Become the awareness of yourself. And when you identify with that awareness, again, this is what meditation does, right? You can also do this when you take a breath, becoming aware of the present moment. You reclaim your frame. There are different schools of thought. And you're here in this vessel for a reason, and it is a blessing. You're meant to enjoy this. You're meant to be happy. Joy is our birthright. And so these experiences of contrast give us the mastery of understanding the mere principle, and that when we work with it on an internal level, so whenever that comes up, if you're able to also as well take space, come into your sacred space, sit with yourself, and just work out the energies. Like, you know how to do it. It's too, I can't explain to you exactly how you would do that, but I'm just saying, if you sat with the intention, because it's unique to everybody's thing, but if you just sat with the intention, that's what's coming through. If you just sat with the intention to work out the energies and feel through those things until you felt your inner worth, and then just breathe, and just breathe, and just breathe. And feeling that vibration of worthiness, that vibration of self-love, that your cork would float, and you start to just merge with your source. So this is inspiring me to create a guided meditation for self-worth and self-love that will include here. And if you'd like that, let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, hit like, subscribe to the channel. If you're new, welcome. We're just getting this going. And, also let me know if you have any future video ideas. Thank you so much for tuning into yourself and the journey of awakening that you're on, that brought you to this moment. This moment couldn't have happened without you. Blessings.